But I would say that the idea of the serial killer has been replaced
I agree.
by
by
the mass shooting.
I think people that want to do something like that go into it now knowing they won't get away with it. Or at least know that the odds are against them they'll get away with it.
It doesn't look like often it doesn't look like they plan on getting away.
Yeah.
How long has it been since we've had a serial killer type
incident
in the United States?
I was wondering about that, and I think it's...
Is it because technology, it's harder to get away?
I think so. I think it's so much harder to get away with a serious crime like that.
Because, you had the Green River thing. Was that what it was?
The Green River killer?
You had BTK.
Gary Ridgway.
Gary Ridgway. But that's been starting to have been quite a while back.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really hear about killing epidemics anymore.
You don't know how many houses are going to have security cameras set up or alarm systems, which is a good thing.
Really, it's been replaced by mass shootings.
Yeah, it has.
In our culture.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
And maybe the gap between the two was the Beltway sniper in Washington, D.C., which has been 18, 19 years ago now.
That was early 2000s.
Because of the, they were shooting people at random, but there seemed to be a subtext to why he was doing this that kind of separated him from the traditional idea of the crazy serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a mass shooting spread over 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And because the serial killers back then, they would write notes to the police and taunt the police.
Sure.
I mean, there were people that said they'd look at it and say, I don't think that they'll ever catch this guy.
Yeah.
But, now so many stores have surveillance. Streetlights have surveillance. You can get videos of the traffic of cars. Again, anything that's in a house, you can track someone's entire path through a city. And you can pull out cell phones and anyone can start videoing at any time. I mean, there's just, and then on the other side, there's so much forensic evidence now, even that they didn't have then. But DNA evidence, fingerprints back then, you couldn't try and match a fingerprint unless you had a suspect to match it to. Now you enter it in the database and the computer matches it all for you. I mean, there's so much that I think people know if they're going to do something like that, they're going to get caught. And that's probably why they go to the mass shootings, mass killings, just going for as much destruction as they can at once and make sure that they make a statement out of it.
But I think the names of the serial killers are more well known than the names of the mass shooters. I can list you off going all the way back to Chicago in the late 1800s. Dr. Holmes, who was a part of Eric Larson's story, The Devil in the White City, when he told the story of the World's Fair and the story of the serial killer in Chicago at the same time. But you can talk about Gacy, you can talk about Bundy, you can talk about Ramirez, you can talk about Ridgway, on and on it goes. These names, we know these names. It's really difficult to come up with the names of mass shooters, in my opinion.
I think they go as fast as they come anymore.
And maybe that's it, or maybe because it's one event, it's not a story that's drawn out over weeks or months or even years.
Yeah, people are invested in the stories of the serial killers because they've been watching it. They've been living in fear of it.
I can tell you Muhammad and Malvo for the shootings in Washington, but they were spread out over 3 weeks, and it became a national story that was covered intensely. It was shutting that city down like a pandemic. People were afraid.
Yeah.
And so so when they finally get captured, you put the face to the crime. Well, now the crime happens and the death of the perpetrator usually happens, and it all happens at one time. It all kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
That would even be part of it is, if someone gets killed at the end of the shooting, no court trial, no nothing. That's it.
I mean, there are people who can tell you all these things quick. Tell me the name of the Las Vegas shooter.
I don't know.
See, I can't remember it. Tell me the name of the Texas church shooter here 3 years ago that shot up the place. We can't do that very well. Now we can do it with the boys at Columbine because they were
Well,
they were trailblazers.
Yeah. They were early on.
And it was school and all of these things. And it was a national news coverage for days. Now it gets a news story and a couple of days of attention, and then we move on because it has become the new crime of serial killing.
Yeah, because I agree. I can't think of hearing about any serial killers. You can't get away with this stuff anymore. Every time you stop for gas, there's going to be a video of you.
Well, and the saying has always been there's no such thing as a perfect crime, but that has become an absolute nearly in today's world. I'm just saying you don't hear about serial killers anymore, but you hear about mass shooters.
But it is still an interesting, perception that
why is that the way it is?
It does.